I fixed the main hinge pin on this gear lever. Now I need to work on the cable pin. The wear on this pin on the gear shift lever is quite significant. It's more than 0.5 millimetre on that 8mm diameter pin, so that magnifies a fair bit of play when you've got a worn out bush and a sloppy shaft. Now that pin really needs replacing, because making a bush that goes on there, it's got to be 8mm in diameter to push over the section where the cotter pin goes through, and then it's going to slop around on the 7.5mm section where it runs. So I think the pin needs replacing. I think I'm going to cut that one off with the angle grinder, try and centre pop its centre, and then drill the remains of that pin out, and then see how I can go about finding a replacement 8mm pin. I've got a pin from the Chook sheet that's got a circlip on it. Now this is one that probably went through a clevis where a gear shift cable, either the reverse or the high-low range, went up and went through a clevis at the change levers up on the top of the fuel tank. I'm not sure whether that's long enough. It's got a circlip fixing on it, which I suspect would be okay in this situation as well. Length may be a problem. I'm going to remove this pin, get it back to a 8mm neat hole, and try that pin in it. It's going to have to be welded so that it's firm in there. It remains to be seen whether it's long enough. I can then probably find a nylon bush from another cable, which maybe not particularly worn, like the reverse bushes or the high-low range bushes don't get a lot of use, not like this gear shift one. So maybe the bushes in those eyelet ends of the cables are still good. I have removed the old pin from here, and that pin, which I showed earlier how I've cleaned up, I was concerned it was about 1 millimetre too short to it runs the circlip rather than a cotter pin. I was concerned it was about 1 millimetre too short, but I pushed a nylon bush out of another eyelet, a reversing eyelet, off the old bike, and I think this pin is off a gear shift like the reverse or something. It was loose in my Chook shed parts. But now this hole, I drilled it out a small size and then a larger size, and I think it's 8mm, but when I got to 7.5mm, the 7.5mm jammed in the hole. When I cleared it, all of the material came out of the hole, and it's slightly over 8mm. But given that pin's going to be welded in there, I hope I can get it straight. I'll weld it in this position so that the pin should be sitting flat and straight. I think there's enough. Well, I have tried the nylon washer, the eyelet, the steel washer and the circlip on there. I've even sanded a little bit off the thickness of that lever to help it a fraction, but it fitted without that. And so it's just a matter now of getting weld on there. And as you know, that's not easy for me. Well, I got to say, the welding I did on there is pretty shit as usual, but could have been worse. It's I give it a 3 out of 10 when I'm lucky to score it all. That pin, I think, is adequately fixed there now. I've given it a little bit of a wire brush. I think the pedal basically is fixed, finished now. I'm hoping that's got enough offset. It's actually very difficult to straighten as nice as I'd like it to be. It's got some compound bends in it. I've tried to take a bit of the twist out of it. She goes this way and that. Anyway, I think the pedal's done. I haven't got I haven't gone back to the bushing and cut those O-rings deep enough in it. That's the next job. So there's the O-rings fitted to the pin. Pretty much guessed at the grooves and the O-ring sizes. So anyway, I've dry fitted it on a little bit of light oil. I've fitted it into the bearing. I'm going to use some of this molybdenum disulfide grease on this lowered section here, or on the whole pin, but a little bit of quantity will sit in the relieved section in the middle there. And I'm finally going to get this assembled. I'm happy that the small pin is going to work as well. This is my repaired pedal. There is simply no side-to-side movement in this pedal. This hinge here is perfect. It's now got grease in it and O-rings in it. Now the eyelet connection here, there's no detectable play in it either. The pedal is moving up and down maybe 2 millimeters now. Back here, that means it's moving, I don't know, 1 millimeter. So where is that millimeter of slop? Well, there's the top of the gear change. It makes sense that the nylon bush and possibly that pin is also worn because it's done as much work as the foot pedal joint, and maybe there's some play in that. Barely detectable in that shot. Nonetheless, it's so much more improved. I'm not going to go fishing in there trying to look at that end of the cable. I think I will say I'm happy with what I've done. You can see the end of my new pin there. My Chook shit welding's on display. So be it. Yeah, that eyelet junction there, circlip on the back, is working fine. The pedal's straighter. This pad is parallel to the pivot point and it's bent out a bit. I think, as I said, we're done. This pedal now feels like it's brand new. Get out to your shed and have some fun.